It's week 4 of my Summer with Lisa Kleypas challenge, and this week I'm reading Devil in Winter. It's the most controversial book, and I can't wait to talk all about it. Hi, my name's Bea. Welcome to my channel. Mama needs to read some romance because no one in this book is going to stand by my bed at 4:50 in the morning and stare at me until I wake up. At least I don't think so. Would Sebastian do that? Okay, so I hear a lot about this book. Some people only read this book. Some people read all the books in the Wallflower series, but this book. I have heard people say that Sebastian is the worst. I have heard people say Sebastian is the best. Going in, I wasn't even sure because this barely even takes place at Stony Cross Park. It's primarily at a gaming club. And when I read that, I was like, do I really want to spend time in a gaming club in my mind? I don't know. But I have to tell you, this is one of my favorite books. And Sebastian's redemption story in this is just chef's kiss, I think. So for me, I'm really excited to read this book this week, but I can understand if this is not your favorite. So what I'm going to do, as I've done every week, I'm going to read a little bit, share with you as the week goes on. After this part, there's going to be some spoilers. I'm also going to tell you what I believe the love theme for Sebastian and Evie is. Just getting started, we have Evie. She's not being taken care of well by her family. Her mother had died and her father actually owns a gaming club, but she's estranged from him. She lives with some terrible extended family members who really, now they just want her to marry her cousin so that they can keep all her money. And they treat her terribly. They withhold food. They lock her up in her room. They punish her all the time. And she's the dearest, sweetest person you'd ever want to meet. So she decides she's getting out of there. And her ticket out is to find a man who is so desperate to marry for money that he will be willing to marry her. And who does she feel is the most desperate man she knows? That's right, Sebastian Lord St. Vincent. And she's not far off. He really is in dire straits. He's extremely depressed. He's just been beaten to a pulp by Marcus in the last book because he tried to kidnap Lillian and marry her to take her money. So he's not a great guy at the beginning of this book. However, it's going to happen. It's going to happen. I'm just going to tell you. Evie gives him a proposition. You marry me, you get my money, and then you take me away from my family. So it's a win-win. She has zero interest in him. She just wants to get away, and she knows that he's the man that's going to be able to do it. So that's the premise of the book. Can't wait to get started. If you've already read this one, join me on my vlog and relive all the magic all over again. If you're reading it for the first time, just keep pausing it throughout and we'll read it together. So in any case, I'm excited. Let's do it. Well, I just finished chapter 2. I would have liked to have waited a little bit longer, but the way my week is going, I got another sick kiddo. And man, I tell you, I gotta do these while I can. And right now, my 5-year-old, who's the only one who is not sick or getting over being sick, is in occupational therapy and speech therapy. So I got a few minutes to myself. I'm taking advantage. Anyways, to the book. Mary Jane Wells, narrator. She's so perfect. I love her so much. I liked Rosalind Landor. She narrated Again the Magic, Secrets of a Summer Night, and It Happened One Autumn. But I am thrilled that Mary Jane Wells is going to be doing this book, the next book, Scandal in Spring, and A Wallflower Christmas. Mary Jane Wells is absolutely the perfect narrator for Sebastian. He's lascivious. He's sardonic. He's a tiger. He's gorgeous, and he knows it. He's got all these incredible lines, like he asks Evie how long her father has to live after he's lamented the fact that his dad, he has no money and his dad is taking forever to die, so he's never going to inherit the title. And Evie says, well, my father is rich and he's going to die soon. And Sebastian says immediately, congratulations. This guy, from the moment she enters his house, he is warning her about himself. He is smart and she knows that he's not a great guy. And part of the reason that she's chosen him is because she believes that he is going to be the only guy who is going to be a good adversary to the Maybricks, which is of course her family, who they really go into in the first couple chapters just how terribly they have treated her, how much they've punished her, and how their whole goal is just to break her and then take her money, essentially. And she's not going to let that happen. She is resilient. She's a fighter, And maybe she seems weak or shy, but she's strong. And that's one of the things I love about this book. You just never know what a person has in their heart. And I think that's something we're going to be learning about Sebastian as well. They decide to go to Gretna Green, and she says that I will let you consummate the marriage, but I need everything to go through. But after that, I have zero interest in sleeping with you again. And of course, to that he says, I enjoy a challenge. She wants to be there with her father when he dies, because her father, although she describes him as negligent, he was the only person in her life that ever really loved her. And your heart just breaks for Evie. She talks about how she knows that her marriage isn't going to be one like Lillian or Annabelle have, but she's just hopeful to get out of her current circumstances, and she's fine with that. Another thing I discovered, they're talking about Jenner's, which is of course her father's club, used to be known as Craven's. The name Craven stuck out to me this time because I read in a blog somewhere that Derek Craven is frequently considered to be the most popular hero in any of the Lisa Kleypas books. So this book actually relates to the series called The Gamblers of Craven's, and it's 3 books. Actually, it's like 2.5. The first one is Then Came You, and then there's Dreaming of You, which is the one with Derek Craven, and I cannot wait. So now, of course, I have to read this other series. There's also a 3rd book, an anthology called Where's My Hero? Lisa Kleypas' story in Where's My Hero deals with the doctor who apparently was a fan favorite. That doesn't mean anything to me right now, but I'm looking forward to learning all of that. Okay, so it's still Monday, but I couldn't help it. I just finished chapter 3, and I just wanted to tell you a little bit more. Oh my gosh, that wedding. Not only is it, you can tell like there's something in the air between the two of them. It's getting really romantic, and also it's hilarious. After the blacksmith decides he doesn't like Sebastian, he finds all kinds of ways to charge him so much money for different parts of the wedding. And when they find out that the statement inscribed in the ring says, "My love is upon you," oh, I just got goosebumps all over. Just knowing what's coming in the book. Oh, it's so perfect. It's so perfect. Oh, I can't wait for more of that later. Also, I forgot to mention, when they were on their way to Scotland, he really took care of her a lot. And at one point, she discovers that both of them lost their mothers very young, and he had 4 sisters, all of whom passed away very young. And he acts like he doesn't really care, but you get a sense that maybe this is part of what's really hardened his heart or helped him to want to keep people at bay. And as they start to grow closer together on their travels, he says, I need to do something diabolical soon. You know, he just has this need to feel hated, maybe because he wants to keep people further away. She can tell that the vows affect him too. By the way, I figured out the perfect song. It's Hozier, Take Me to Church. Oh my gosh. The intensity of that song totally reflects the intensity between Evie and Sebastian. It's perfect. And her love really reforms him and saves him. And he would give his life for her. In fact, well, we'll see what happens later in the book. But oh, I'm definitely going to listen to this song as I read the book. It's just perfect. So I had to share. 3, 2, 1, let's go! Okay, well, we are later in the week. You got to enjoy my 2-year-old playing the drum that my 5-year-old brought home from music camp. Oh no, it was so much drumming and so very loud, and we're looking forward to music camp being over. Or at least him bringing a keyboard home like he did the first day, as opposed to the drum. Oh my gosh. I just finished physical therapy, which if you have your therapy bingo card out, that's right. Now you can put a mark under physical, occupational, and speech therapy for the week. The mental therapy takes place later. That would be something I started during the pandemic when the try hard and try harder wasn't really working for me anymore. But you tried teaching kindergarten to your oldest while you have a 3-year-old and also a newborn. It doesn't work out too well without a little extra mental help. I loved her so much I've kept her around. Now, let's go back to the book. Sebastian and Evie have just gotten married, and they're tied together by ribbon, and he decides to really start kissing this girl. Oh my gosh, I loved it. So steamy. And Evie goes, I now realize why women would threaten to commit suicide over losing Sebastian, because even the way he kissed was just incredible. So she's exhausted by the time they get back, and he just lavishes her with attention. He takes care of her. He says he has no interest in sleeping with her tonight because they're both so tired. And I have to tell you, being older now and a mom, the idea of being taken care of, like bathed and dried and nightgown on and everything. It's almost more romantic than anything else. Before I would have been like, oh, that's nice. But now it's like, oh, wait, this part's so good. The next morning, Evie is awoken by Sebastian. Oh my gosh, it was hot. It was their first time together. And the first time I listened to this part of the book, I was on a walk, and there's a line that he says, and forgive me, I'm going to say it. He goes, I wonder what would happen if I kept doing this without stopping. And I heard him say that, again, through Mary Jane Wells, who's like the perfect narrator for him. I almost just fell over. While I was walking, I was like, whoa, I just went boneless. I would have been in a puddle on the sidewalk, and someone would have had to, collect me off the sidewalk. It was just so steamy. I mean, the whole thing was just so good. I love that she surprises him. I mean, literally, it says at the end of their lovemaking that she alarms him. And I love that she sets him off balance. I just think that's terrific. And he realizes just how intense his feelings are for her, and how it was like so good for him, and he didn't expect that. So I love that. I love that she's throwing him off because he's so practiced and perfect. So they head back, and again, he's taking care of her every little whim and making sure she's got a foot warmer. She wants to go to London right away because she wants to be with her dad, but already they're starting to have this push and pull of married life. Like, he's trying to tell her what to do, so they've got this friction now. She wants to be with her dad. She doesn't want to listen to her husband. She doesn't want to wait. She said, I don't want to sleep with you again. She said it's a self-preservation thing. She doesn't want to be just another woman, just another notch in his belt. At one point, he's pretty aroused, and so he's like, am I going to be a butcher's dog? And she's like, what does that mean? I'm just in the corner. I don't even get any scraps. And she said something about him being bored, and he goes, does this look bored to you? And he's referring to a certain part of his anatomy, and she goes, well, it just depends on which part you're looking at. I just love the lines. The dialogue in this is so great. So they keep traveling. They get to Jenner's, the gaming club, and Sebastian immediately changes like his whole personality. Like, he goes from sort of cavalier, disinterested to now he's like really interested in what's going on in the club. And he feels like, well, because it's now his, he wants to take care of it. Also, one of my favorite things, we get to meet Cam Rohan, who I am totally in love with. His scene later on in the book with another wallflower, it almost eclipsed some of the Sebastian and Evie stuff for me, almost. That just refuse to completely get well, and they are cranky and grumpy and want my time. I'm trying to entertain them desperately, but it is hard, and I've also spread myself way too thin. I was like, oh, it'll be easy. I'll do a recap for the Seduction series for Kindle Vella, and then I'll do Radiance review because I really want to do that. We wanted to finish that up, and then I did a June wrap up, and then I did a July TBR. Well, what am I thinking? What am I doing? This has got to be a rookie mistake. I'm not doing it like this again. This is bananas. Anyway, so where are we right now in Devil in Winter? We're around chapter 9. I know that much. She's seen her father. He's wasting away. He's not being cared for very well. And so Evie really steps in. She starts taking care of him. Sebastian's doing the exact same thing with the club. He discovers that Egan, who is sort of Evie's father's right-hand man, he's been stealing from the club. He's a bad guy. Sebastian really wants to take over and understand things and improve things. He's really excited about the plans that he has. Evie is just blown away by the changes in Sebastian already, and Cam is annoyed because Sebastian won't leave him alone about everything he does with the club. Sebastian's also really taking care of Evie. He's been concerned about her health in relation to potentially inhaling consumption, germs, and she just wants to be with her dad. One of the craziest parts, he was frustrated and he moved his hands really quickly, and because of her background with being hit by members of her family, she kind of flinched, and he realized that she had been hit before, and his reaction to that was just incredible. I mean, he was so angry on her behalf. He just wants to protect her, and he was desperate for her to know that he would never raise his hands to her ever, which I just thought was so beautiful. He's just doing everything he can to take care of her, and even her father, he jumps in to shave her father, which couldn't have been a very pleasant experience, but he's just really becoming more selfless all the time, and I'm just so impressed by him. Oh my gosh, so much has happened. It's crazy. So Evie's father passed away and Sebastian took care of everything. He made a perfect funeral for her dad, something that he would have loved. The fact that he had a funeral, it clued in Evie's family that she was there in London. So they make a deal with Joss Bullard, who might even be her half brother. We don't know, but he's a bad guy who works at the club. And Joss tells her that Annabelle is waiting for her downstairs when actually, I'm whispering again. Why do I always whisper when I'm doing these? I guess because I'm afraid people are gonna think I'm crazy. I noticed editing before, I'm like, and then blah, 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 don't tell anybody. I'm gonna try not to whisper. Anyway, okay, so, say it loud, say it proud. So she goes downstairs thinking that she's going to see Annabelle. It's not Annabelle, it's her family. It's her awful uncles who have come to collect her. Sebastian, however, is her knight in shining armor. He comes, gets her out of the carriage, and then fights one of her uncles. And then Cam says, you might want to be with him because he's going to be full of sap. And she's like, what does that mean? And I think we all get a sense of what that means in the next scene. She's actually really upset. Not so much about the fact that her family was basically going to abduct her, but because Sebastian had been at the brothel nearby and was trying to make a deal with them so that his patrons could utilize their services, and then he wouldn't have to have those types of women in their club anymore, because he's trying to change the reputation and make good business deals. Evie is assuming that he is also utilizing their services. I can't see, hold on. Ah, that's better. Okay. It's clear she's jealous. And then he makes it very clear that he wants her. And then she says, look, you have to prove fidelity to me if we're going to be together. And so they make a deal. He's not going to sleep with anyone for 3 months to prove that he can be faithful to her. And then she said they get to be together for the rest of their lives. But she does say that he can kiss her whenever he wants and however he wants. Well, he proceeds to tell her what he would do with her. And I'm not going to lie. Okay, so I haven't read a ton of romance novels in my life, but I'm saying that scene where he's telling her what he would do to her is the most erotic thing I've ever read. And I'm talking including scenes, like actual love scenes. It leaves you breathless. Like you almost can't move. Like you're listening and you're like a deer in headlights listening to him talk about what he's gonna do to her. It's crazy. It's crazy. Basically, the rest leading up to chapter 14 is him just continuing to work on the club. She's becoming more outgoing because people sort of treat her with more respect now that she is married to a viscount, and basically is kind of a co-owner sort of the club, as much as a woman can be a co-owner of anything at this point. It's going really well, except that Cam let Joss go after everything happened with the almost kidnapping, and Cam goes to look for him because Sebastian's like, you better go find him. It's clear that Joss is very sick and deranged and has daggers out for Evie. Other than that, in where I am in chapter 14 right now, he was starting to kiss her, and man was it hot. Unfortunately, they get interrupted because there's a brawl going on in the coffee room, and who has to break it up but Sebastian. I can't wait to hear Cam give the play-by-play again as he did with the other fight. It's hot. That's why I was on the treadmill. Yeah, it's hot. It's 90 plus degrees and humid in Maryland, and not excited about that. I am now also in a very cool place in the house. This is the library area. It's the kids' playroom. And there's my books. It's my shelf. I really want to rework this whole thing. Especially seeing the BookTube people with their gorgeous shelves of beautiful, beautiful books. It's like, ooh, I would love to have something more like that moving along. So I just finished chapter 17, and again, so much has happened. As we left off last time, Sebastian was breaking up a brawl that was going on in the coffee room, but it was hilarious listening to Cam talk to Evie about what Sebastian was doing or what he should have done. It was great. And afterwards, Cam explains, like, you need to be willing to fight all the time because everybody's going to want a piece of you, and they're going to want to prove themselves against you. So Cam tries to get an employee to come over to fight Sebastian so that Cam can give him some tips. And Sebastian is wary of the idea of not fighting like a gentleman, but apparently he's going to have to change his tactics if he's going to make it in the world of the gaming club. Then one of my favorite scenes, 2 more of the Wallflowers come over. We have Annabelle, who is pregnant, and Daisy, who come to visit Evie to see if she's okay, to see if Sebastian coerced her into this marriage. And Evie sets their minds at ease, mostly. And Daisy loves the library area, doesn't understand why the gentlemen aren't there to read books, and thinks there isn't anything more stimulating than reading. To which Annabelle says, well, there might be one other thing, which was pretty funny. But one of my favorite scenes in this entire book happens right now. Daisy goes into a secret passageway that she finds after pulling on a book and encounters Cam, who is so seductive and sexy. And I have to tell you, anyone other than Sebastian, any other male lead in any of these books, well, except for maybe McKenna. I think McKenna could outshine Cam. But Sebastian's the only one, I think, that can hold his own against Cam in this book. Otherwise, Cam would have been like the number one guy for me. I was that scene he has with Daisy where she talks about, he says, well, if I let you back into the secret passage, what are you going to give me? And she says, you could take a liberty. And she explains that means like a hug or a kiss or something. And when he says in his Cockney accent, I'll take a liberty. I can't do the Cockney. But oh my gosh. And then they proceed to kiss and Daisy just comes undone. And I love at the end, she goes, well, I'm glad I was able to teach you something. It was so funny and sweet and steamy. I love that scene so much. It's one of my very favorites in the entire book. And, it's not even Cam's book. So time passes. They're getting things accomplished within the club. Things are going well. Sebastian decides to take her up one afternoon to the billiards room. I think we all know that billiards is a great opportunity to touch somebody else. I mean, we've all seen it in movies, television shows, like, oh, let me show you how to move that pool cue over the board. What is that called? It was really good. It gets really steamy really fast, and he provides some services to her, and he says, you said I could kiss you. You didn't say where. Oh my. It was a good scene. Sebastian is very accomplished. Well, they're talking about Evie leaving because he really wants her out of there. He's really nervous about Joss Bullard coming back. He wants her away from him so it's easier for him to not fall prey to her feminine wiles, so to speak. And as they're discussing this, Marcus, Lord Westcliff, comes and he is there to potentially save Evie or at least to see what's going on. And of course, he's very much estranged from Sebastian, and Sebastian feels very guilty for the way that he treated Lillian, and he doesn't even understand now why he even did it. He feels like it was a really bad move because he really has missed Marcus's friendship. But a really interesting thing happens, and Evie and Marcus both notice that Sebastian starts getting very cold. You can tell that he's got these defenses built up, how he doesn't want anyone to think that he's really attached to Evie. He's just afraid to show too much affection to her. He wants everybody to think he's a villain, and I think that's his way of keeping people at a distance. And so I think they're both sort of perplexed by this, and Evie is very hurt by the way that he treats her and talks to her in front of Marcus, and she just doesn't understand why he's being so cold to her all of a sudden. But it's like he's trying to prove to himself, to Marcus, and to Evie that there's nothing more going on. He's just getting scared. She leaves, and he follows not long after that. It looks like their friendship is gonna get back on track. But he walks out into one of the main rooms, and he starts to feel really nervous. And long story short, too late, Joss Bullard is there, and he brandishes a gun. Sebastian runs over to shield her body and to protect her, and in doing so, he gets shot, and the blood is coming out. And of course, who's the first person on the scene? The hero of the day, of every day, Marcus. As they're trying to uncover what's going on in terms of his wound, Evie discovers that the wedding band that she took off in a fit of anger, Sebastian is wearing it around his neck. Is that not the sweetest thing? And of course he's like, oh, it's not a love match, it's nothing. And he's, again, even in that, he's just acting like it doesn't mean the world to him when it does. He's just afraid, except when he really thinks that he's going unconscious, and he just says, Marcus, I'm sorry. And he's never apologized a day in his life. And then he says, sure, Evie's gonna be okay. And that's where chapter 17 leaves off. Well, I've just gotten to chapter 20, and basically the entire section of this book was devoted to Sebastian's healing. It didn't look like he was going to recover there for a little while because not of bleeding, but infection. And Dr. Hammond, who I wonder if he also winds up having a big role as Garrett's mentor in the book Hello Stranger in the Ravenel series. I feel like that is Dr. Hammond. I'm trying to remember. I'll find out when I read Hello Stranger in a few weeks. So Dr. Hammond actually wants to bleed Sebastian, and Evie listens to Sebastian's wishes and doesn't let him get bled. But then Dr. Hammond says, look, if you're not going to listen to my advice, I gotta go. So they wind up using ideas from Cam and Lillian, who is so obnoxious. Mary Jane Wells's New York accent is very interesting. I love it when she says really loudly, and Marcus is like, oh, you're always too loud, but she goes, is he in a coma, Marcus? And it's just so annoying. I think that's part of the reason I didn't like Lillian as much, the ways she's portrayed in this book as opposed to her own book. But Lillian does seem to be coming around in terms of forgiving Sebastian, and she's also very thrilled that she got to see him naked because she feels like that she can lord that over him. But anyway, so Lillian, Cam, and Marcus use different types of concoctions and things that they've learned from nannies or maids, or for example, Cam's grandmother was a healer. So they all use these things, and it turns out that Sebastian comes back to health. Evie is there for him every step of the way, and it makes Sebastian terrified that he is so in love with her, and he realizes it's not even just sexual, it's just he needs her so badly, and it terrifies him. So he tries to push her away, and then one day when he keeps ringing the bell for no reason in particular, she decides to seduce him, and it is lovely. But he's mad because he's losing the bet, because he was going to be celibate for 3 months, and so she helps him lose that with her. But it is lovely, and it's good to see that he is feeling well, and I know she's so happy. But yeah, it's quite a section of the story where she really gets to be his champion now. After he took care of her so many times, now she's getting a chance to show him how much she cares, and he loves her so much. Okay, so I just finished the book. This is like my 4th time. Oh, so good. So Sebastian's all back to health, and he's a legend now. He's a hero. There's so much great press. Everybody wants them at parties and soirees and balls and everything, and everybody in the world wants to get into the club. He tells her one night that he wants to make love to her, and she goes, I thought you didn't call it that. And he says, I will with you. And you just get the sense, I mean, he's just changed. He's a new man, and he loves her so much, and he's loving on her so much, and I was here for it. It was just beautiful. And then it gets pretty intense. This is a pretty intense ending. They discover that the gun that Egan used to try to kill Evie belonged to Egan. So Marcus and Sebastian go to Egan's house. Egan gets terrified that he's going to be implicated in this. So he spills everything. He says, okay, Egan is potentially the son of Ivo Jenner, but he never really cared about Joss. So Joss has always harbored this incredible resentment for Evie. He wants her dead. Now he also has distemper pox, which is eating away his flesh, including his mind. He's becoming crazy. And then Marcus and Sebastian go to the place, like a ward for people. They're called incurables. And they are told that Joss has died. So Sebastian, I think, feels some relief there. But not long after, Evie is getting ready, and she sees some hideous figure in the corner of her room, and it's Joss. And he says, we're gonna go together to the gates of hell and see our dad. It's terrifying, and thank goodness one of the maids saw that someone was in the room with Evie and alerted Sebastian. So Sebastian shows up at the door and starts talking to Joss about how he's going to help him, but really he's just maneuvering in such a way that will allow Cam a clean shot. Cam shoots Joss, kills him. Joss didn't have much longer to live anyway, but Cam is taking it very hard because this was a person that he grew up with since he was a boy. And even though they weren't on the best of terms, obviously this is very hard for Cam. Evie becomes very maternal to him until Sebastian's like, okay, that's enough. Sebastian tries to take care of things with Cam all through the night. And the next morning when Evie wakes up, Sebastian, who hasn't even slept, says, look, you've got to go to my country estate. I can't have you here. It's too dangerous. And Evie realizes he's not trying to protect her. He's trying to protect himself. And they just really admit how deeply they love one another. And in one of my very favorite parts, he kisses her hand and touches her ring. And he says, my love is upon you. And I just get goosebumps. I get like teary thinking about it. Oh, it's so good. Lisa Kleypas, You author, you're so amazing. I just love it. And then we get to the epilogue where we see Annabelle is very, very pregnant and excited for Evie to give her foot rubs. But the big news is that now Lillian is also pregnant. So that's gonna be fun. And Daisy is looking longingly at all her friends. They're happily married, very happily married. And I think Daisy wants that. So they are setting up for the next book, Scandal in Spring. So looking forward to that one next week. I hope you'll join me. I hope you're doing well and enjoying whatever you're reading. Until next time, thanks so much. Take care. Bye.